Get high rapper, the man hour. You already know. It's live. It's raw. It's going down. Like this. I'm going around and letting everybody know that they welcome to the show. It's the littest thing you ever seen, you already know. Let me introduce you to your host of the hour. It be Mike and Mike. Yeah, it's the man hour. Got the hottest plays, all the breaking news. Every rumor, every trade, every breaking bruise. Tighten knuckle screws. Yeah, it's going down. Have you saying what the fuck and never watered down. It's going down. I'll be rolling up. And if you buy it or you sell it, then you made the cut. Watch me flip it back. I can double up. I got sriracha for that ass, I'ma burn it up. Gotta check the rules, but know that it be fair and foul. Rep blow the whistle, coach throw the towel. We can do this on the field or outside the lines. It's the man hour though, now we going live.
And what is up, everybody? Michael Buckhatcher here with the Mike and Mike Man Hour, live, raw and uncut sports talk with the one and only, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Coach Tip.
What up? What up? Oh man, come on to this show and get you some of these tips, takes. Let's get it popping. Let's get it popping.
First things first, though, Tip. Have you voted?
I have.
Okay.
I have voted. Yeah.
I have voted as well. I was in and out. I was really much surprised. Speaking of somebody that wasn't in and out, Ben's wife was not in and out last night.
Yeah. Vote or die,
girl.
boys. Vote or die. That's what it's all about.
So, guys, this is Election Day. This is also NFL Trade Deadline Day. But before we get too far into today's show, it is Tuesday. Week 8 of the NFL season is over. So Matt Benz brings us a weekly power ranking, and this is week 9. So, Benz, you sent me your list beforehand, and I was kind of like, what the hell is this guy smoking? And so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Tip. At number 10, Benz has the Indianapolis Colts. They do play the Baltimore Ravens next week at home. This is a 1 p.m. kickoff on the CBS here. So, Benz, tell me about this pick, man.
Yeah, it's an interesting pick. You know, I had the Rams at 10 last week, and I removed them. And with the Colts coming in, I was high on the Colts to begin the season. Me and Reeves were really high on them. I think even you were pretty high on them too, Buck. But the thing about them is that
they were
that
smoking
defense.
mirrors.
Yeah, and that defense is so powerful. The only sketchy part is that quarterback play and seeing Jonathan Taylor kind of dealing with injury issues and things of that nature. They didn't seem to be phased. They had 2 other backs that can catch the ball and run the ball, and it worked out well. So the Colts squeezed into the top 10 at number 10, and I think that's going to be another interesting game against Baltimore. Baltimore's already been exposed. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but to see what they can do against that defense and how that defense shuts down the rush, that's going to be an interesting game.
Tip, what are your thoughts about number 10?
Well, as I look at the list, I just think, who else are you going to put there? I mean,
Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, that's the big thing. I love that you said that, Buck. I love that you said that. They are my number
Dolphins.
one notable. So
I love my Dolphins, but I think spot 10. I think it could be interchangeable with quite a few teams. I mean, you left out, the Bears. I know they lost the other night, but they played a good game, and they're still 5-2, and so. And they're not an easy out. It's not like they're just beating, crappy teams and then playing crappy against the big teams. So I think spot 10, I'm cool with the coach, but I think you could have interchanged that with probably a couple other teams, maybe the Bears, possibly the Dolphins, maybe 1 or 2 more, maybe the Chargers, maybe, they're looking pretty good. I know they're not winning. Cincinnati is really drummed, the Chargers the other day. So I think 10 is a spot where you can interchange a few teams. I think the rest of the teams, I don't agree with all of the spots necessarily. I think they're good spots, but I think those are definitely 9 teams. But the 10th team I look at and I say, okay, you can interchange a few teams here.
But the Colts are definitely a team you have to have in the top 10. They are definitely one of the most powerful teams in the NFL. We've seen this week in and week out. They are a complete team. I almost want to say they are a quarterback away, to be totally honest. Yes, they went and got Phillip Rivers in the offseason, but the Colts are almost a quarterback away. And they drafted a quarterback this year to sit behind Phillip to learn. Look out for the Colts next year, 100%. Like, I think they'll make a deep run next year, but I like the 10 spot.
Their linebacker, Leonard, is a beast. He's ridiculous.
Their whole defense is a beast.
Yeah, they got they're headed in the right direction. They got a great offensive line, but you remember they built that team for luck. So Rivers and well, I forget his name that played last year, but they already had a good team. Yeah, Brissett. They already had a good team around them. You know, they built that for luck. So the offensive line and everything was in place. So, you know, they're in a good spot. I agree with that.
So, guys, we are talking with Matt Benz from Twist Nation here. He gives us a weekly power rankings moving forward for the NFL season here. And then coming at number 9, Benz, you do have the New Orleans Saints. Mm-hmm. They are 5-2, second in the NFC South, and they do travel to Tampa Bay next week to take on the Buccaneers. Explain to this one for me.
Well, like I said about a lot of the teams in our top 10 today is that their defense is playing better. The good thing about this defense is that they're shutting down the run, the pass not so much, but they're keeping it down in points on both sides of the ball, which is interesting. The offense isn't still exploding like it could be. Not a lot of offensive threats on the throwing part of the ball, except for Alvin Kamara and then some no-namers. Jared Cook had a great game as well. He's kind of staying steady, slow and steady in of itself. Drew Brees is doing just enough, but I still think by them getting through that Bears defense and squeezing one out there, that keeps them in the top 10, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Zip.
I agree. Actually, I think they might be a little higher. I told you all at the beginning of the season when the Saints beat the Bucks, you know, I really believe the Bucks are better than the Saints. But the Saints are a good team. They have a good defense. Like Ben said, they've hung in some games. They still don't have Thomas back. Cook is coming on. Kamara's a beast. When Thomas comes back, and I don't know what's going on with that situation exactly, but I think they could be higher. And I'll tell you where I think they could be. I think they could be right in that 5 spot where the Packers are at.
Oh,
and
man.
when you hear my top, when we talk,
I love that shit.
When we
Let's
talk
go,
about
Tim.
when we talk about my top 5, brother, I think the Saints are better than the Bears. I mean, better than the Packers. I think right now they possibly could be a more complete team and maybe better than the Ravens all around. Maybe not quite the defense the Ravens have, but offensively they're much better than the Ravens, especially when Thomas comes back.
Okay, well, first things first,
so
Tip.
the
Michael
Cardinals,
Thomas is not coming back.
Okay,
no?
well, I'm just
He's
saying.
getting traded.
Ooh,
I'm just saying we're all using hypotheticals here, and if you put that team together and you put them on paper against these, they're a more complete team than say the Ravens are. They're a more complete team than the Packers are. They're a more complete team than the Cardinals are. And so that's just the way I see it. And you can't count the Saints out because they're champions. You've got Sean Payton and you still got Breeze, who has a wet noodle, but he's still moving the ball around. He's not throwing a lot of deep balls. Of course, he doesn't have anybody to throw it to. But they're still a solid team, and they've got a good defense, man. And they're experienced, and you cannot count them out.
So here's the problem with the Saints: is
they're not
everything
5-2 for nothing. They're 5-2. They're 5-2 with Thomas out. Picture that.
Thomas
Feel
is
that.
going to be out for the rest of the season because he is on the trading block right now. But if you really look at who the Saints have played, they played the Panthers. Okay, they're a 500 team. They play the Chargers, trash. They play the Lions. I want to say it, they're trash right now too. And then they lost to the Raiders and they beat the Bucks for week number 1. With all that being said, you said
and they went to Chicago and won in the cold.
Okay. They beat a horrible Chicago Bears team, the worst 5-2 team of all of
maybe.
Football.
Maybe.
But what I'm saying here is you are saying that the Saints are a championship caliber team. They've won 1 championship since Drew Brees has been there.
No, I'm not. I'm saying that they still have championship pieces on their team, and they still have a championship mentality, and they still have experience, and they still have Sean Payton, and they still have Drew Brees. And that's what I'm saying.
In the first round of the playoffs over and over.
Hey, man, they're not 5-2 for nothing. They have still beaten these teams without their whole team being intact. Without Breeze having a go-to guy, they have still beaten these teams. Breeze is 40-plus years old, and he went to Chicago in the cold and beat them without his number. Well, it's debatable his number one player, but no less than number two player. I'm telling you, they're a solid team.
My big thing with the Saints, real quick before we move on, is just that defense. If they stay consistent enough to keep the games close, they will pull out W's. And that's what's scary, because that secondary, that secondary can be shaky. And if if the Saints lose, they get blown out. That's the big thing. So it's interesting. We'll see how it goes moving forward. But I'm sticking with them. They're that one team that I've been sticking with.
I want to put this out there, too. It may not be long before Winston makes his appearance. Now, I want to say this real quick. I'll preface this with this. Sean Payton is loyal to Drew Brees.
And that's why they'll lose.
That's understandable. Yeah. But I do believe Sean Payton is also more loyal to his money. And if the upper deck says, hey, if management says, hey, let's see what Winston can do, it's time to see blah, 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 I think we could see a Winston sighting, and it wouldn't surprise me at all, because with all those receivers that they've got, they do have some decent receivers. Man, Winston's got an arm, and he can move the ball up the field.
Well, that's not the Saints' the Saints' MO is to nickel and dime you down the field. Not
that's because Breeze can't make it up the field anymore.
Well,
he can't, but Winston
that's just
can.
The play calling. But let me tell you this tip from a coaching aspect: if you bench a starting quarterback to quote try Jameson out, and you cannot put Drew Brees in back for the rest of the season, you understand that, right?
I understand that, but at some point, as a coach, you have a responsibility not just to one player, but to your team and the well-being of the team. And he's getting paid a lot of money. And if the man from above him says, hey, I want Winston in there, what is he going to do? He's got a family to feed too, and he's got a team I think they're better with Winston. I do. I think if they had Winston in there, I believe they'd probably score 35-plus a game.
Brandon Combs is getting to you. Brandon Combs said Jameis Winston is better than Drew Brees. You guys are both at your feet.
Now, here's the thing about it. I'm going to overrule everything since it is my power rankings. I'm going to tell you right now that you will see Taysom Hill at quarterback before you will see Jameis Winston, simply because they want to see what they have in Taysom Hill. I buy zero stock in Taysom Hill, but they want to see, since they paid him the loot and they only got Jameis for this year, Jameis is going to go hop on another roster next year. He will not be the quarterback of the Saints. It's unfortunate because Taysom Hill is garbage and is not a quarterback. And that's exactly how the cookie crumbles. What do I got at number 8?
Moving on to number 8, you had the 5-2 Tennessee Titans coming off another loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. This week they're at home versus the Chicago Bears, another trash team. Possibly the two worst 5-5 teams in all of football playing this week. Number 8 Tennessee Titans. Explain yourself, Ben.
Excuse me.
It is what it is. Back-to-back L's, man. And I understand losing to the Steelers, but you cannot, as a team like the Titans, you have to beat the gimmies. And yes, Joe Exotic is looking great back there in quarterback. Nobody's knocking the Tiger King. We all understand that, but that's a W. You need to make those W's and you need to turn those into gimme wins. That should not have been close, especially with Mixon out. I understand Gio Bernard is still one of the best backup running backs in the league. There's no doubt about that. The stash is a beautiful thing, but you got to win those games. That's why they fall down to number 8. They still have arguably one of the top running backs in the league, a downhill runner. That's why they're still a top 10 team. But don't be surprised. These are one of the teams that I've had in the top 5 this year. And at the end of the season, they might not even be in the top 10, man. So
they won't.
It's tough. Yeah.
Tip, what are your thoughts on it?
I think they had a letdown from the Steelers game. That's what I think. I think if you put them against Cincinnati, they win at least 2 out of 3 games. And I don't think it's now their secondary needs some help. They do need some help in their secondary, but they're still a really good squad. Now, my one question about Tennessee is, though, I'm not sure that they know their identity yet. Like one game, like against Pittsburgh, Okay, Pittsburgh's loading the box for Derrick Henry, and he only got like 75 yards rushing, but they're loading the box, so you have to pass. But then there's some games that they come back against Cincinnati. Ryan Hill doesn't pass as much, and Derrick Henry now is over 100 yards with, 18, 20 carries. So I don't know that they know their identity yet and who they are, and I think they're still kind of trying to figure that out. But they've also had this year is kind of their first year where they've all been together with not a bunch of injuries, somebody being in and out and in and out. So I like the Titans still, and I've got the Chiefs. I've been saying it all year, going to the AFC Championship game, going to the Super Bowl. But I think there's only 3 teams in the AFC that can even compete with the Chiefs and make it to the AFC Championship. And I think that's either Pittsburgh or who was the other one I had? It was either Pittsburgh, Baltimore, or Tennessee. I think they're the only 3 teams that have what it takes to get there and play the Chiefs. I think the rest of the AFC is broken down. So I'll take Tennessee, number 8. I think that's probably a pretty good spot for them right now. But I do think they may be better than the Cardinals and the Packers as an all-around team.
Yeah, that's an interesting take because I feel like on the opposite end of the spectrum, they do know their identity. Their identity is to run the rock, and run the rock.
But they're not doing it.
When teams shut down the run, you see them hang close, but Tannehill can't win games. He's not a closer like that. And they showed it last year in the playoffs. As long as they continue to run the rock, they might get out some games, but they're starting to get exposed. And Derrick Henry can take that workload, but can it last forever? It's sketchy to see. So we'll see. Yeah, they're a solid number 8 team.
Yeah, I am definitely jumping on that bench train. The Titans are going to finish 8-8 and barely make it into the playoffs again. But moving on to number 7, you do have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after a close win last night over the San Francisco or the New York Giants, I should say. They are 6-2 on the season. They do play the Saints at home on Sunday Night Football. Benz, many people are saying the Bucs are the best team in football. You have them at number 7. What's up with that?
So I have them at number 7 simply because you barely squeak by the New York Football Giants, which is sketchy in of itself. That Giants team is garbage, and they almost sent that game into overtime if they would have got that 2-point conversion. So my big thing with the Bucs is Tom Brady is playing better than Tom Brady should be playing. That's a give me. You look at his line, you look at what he's doing at his age. He is being solid Tom Brady. In other aspects of it, I'm going to be really interested to see what happens with AB coming in. There's all these stories about how AB's living with Tom Brady. Is Tom Brady going to force feed him? What is going to happen there? I do understand the podcasting tips there. Tampa Bay is overrated. They are an overrated team, but that defense is not overrated. That defense is going to win them plenty of games, along with Tom Brady not making mistakes. That's a very dangerous team. They need to lean more on Leonard Fournette. They started to do that a little bit more last night. They're learning their ways. Rocco is not the way to go, and that's why they are at number 7.
Go ahead, Tip.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you there, Mr. Minnesota. I'm going to say, see, the Bucs are in my top 5, and I put them at number 3. And I'll tell you why. There's a couple of takes that I disagree with there. The Giants, for the most part, they're a garbage team. They look like that with their record. But the Giants have played some tough opponents thus far this year. They have had, I think, 5 games where they've gone into the last few minutes and lost the game because they couldn't win. There were some controversial calls in the game last night. Everybody wants to say, okay, was the last play of the game controversial? I don't think that was the controversial call at all. The controversial call I had was earlier in the game when the Bucs were making their drive and they got Bradbury for a pass interference on Evans. I thought that was just a really cheap call. So I think that call right there kept the drive alive and kept them going. But if you look at the Bucs on paper and you look at them on the field, they got the number 1 defense in the NFL. On the offensive side, Brady still doesn't have all of his pieces. Godwin's in and out. Evans, he's suspect from game to game. He's throwing to Scotty Miller and Hickens, and, they're trying to figure out their running game and all that. And they're still, with all of that stuff being said, they are still one of the top teams in the NFL. And I got them at number 3 behind a couple teams we'll talk about here in a little bit. But overall, talent-wise, and when they get all their pieces together and you got a leader like Tom Brady – I'm telling you, man, they are dangerous. I got them going to the Super Bowl.
When
I got them going to the Super Bowl.
When you say all their pieces back,
Yeah.
this team has more pieces
I know,
than if you combined some of the top 5 teams. They have more pieces combined on this team, even with people hurt, even with Godwin out. That's the crazy part about it. So they should be steamrolling teams, and they're winning. Now they did steamroll the Pack. And that's why I believe that they are a solid team. But that defense is what's going to get them deep in the league.
See, they're missing Godwin. Evans doesn't show up all the time. He's supposedly dealing with an injury. You got AB coming in who, if he can keep himself together, he's going to be a major threat. You're trying to figure out the running game. You got Fournette, who is a top 10 back on the norm, but he's still trying to – now, last night he got like 51 to 18 touches or something against Rojo. So he's starting to be used and productive. And by a couple more games into the season, they put all this together. I'm telling you, bro, Super Bowl bound. I pick them. I have them, the Chiefs, and I'm going to pick them to beat the Chiefs. I had the Chiefs winning, but now when I see the Bucks, I think they're much higher than number whatever you got them at, 6 or 7. 7. I think they're way high. They're way better. You got them below the Packers, and they drummed the Packers, and the Packers have no defense.
Well, Tip, the facts are that the Tampa Bay Bucks and Tom Brady can only win when the referees are on their side. And
here we go.
And the next few weeks, we're going to realize that that the referees have decided to shift gears and start rooting for the Cowboys or
So
or
is that
Vikings.
your excuse? Is that what you're getting ready for Super Bowl time when it's that time when Tampa comes and beats you all in the Super Bowl?
You're going to go 10-6.
Okay.
The Bucks will go 10-6 this year. Yes, they will maybe even like 11-5. They're still a first round exit.
Not even close.
They could be a 5th seed playing the Dallas Cowboys, the medley 6-10 Dallas Cowboys, and the Cowboys are going to whoop that ass.
And you don't think they can beat the Cowboys without Dak? Are you kidding me? Have you seen the Cowboys lately?
I have.
Have you watched the Cowgirls lately?
I have.
Have you watched them? They couldn't beat your high school team right now.
When you get
and you're talking about they're going to be a first round, they're going to be a first round win against Tampa Bay. Get out! You really are sipping back on Grandpa's cough syrup, ain't you?
Moving on. Number 6. We are speaking with Matt Benz from Twist this week in Sports Talk. NFL Power Rankings, week number 9. Coming in at number 6, you do have the Arizona Cardinals. They have rattled off 3 wins in a row versus the Jets, Cowboys, and then the Seahawks. They do have Miami at home this week. Benz, are you a little too high on the Cardinals a little early?
I don't believe so. It's interesting because they're coming off that bye week, and I didn't really know what to do with them this week after the shakeups and, great teams taking L's this week. So they are at number 6 because of their dynamic ability on both sides of the ball, but mostly that offense. The defense, it's good. It's good, but it's exactly suspect. But that offense is so electric, and it's interesting to see how they're going to scheme. I do believe, unfortunately, I drafted Kenyon Drake in a lot of fantasy football leagues this year, and Chase Edmonds is going to rear his ugly head when he comes out there and exposes that he is the best back on that team. And then you've got Kyler. So how do you scheme? They're still rushing at high efficiency simply because Kyler can get out of the pocket and do his thing. But then you've got Hop, you've got Christian Kirk, you've got old man trusty, Minnesota made Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, you've got so many options. Andy Isabella, even. Dynasty. Andy and Isabella is solid as well. So that offense is going to be tough to scheme for. I like them at 6, and I like them to stomp the Dolphins this week.
Bold statement.
Them's fighting words. My Dolphins. Hey, man, listen, I think 6 is a great spot for the Cardinals. And I would have taken the Bucks and putting them at number 3, and then that would have split up. That would have been my top 5, and then the Cards would have been 6. I've got them ahead of the pack, and I'll tell you why. They've got so many weapons. Now, Drake has been a huge disappointment. Now he's out. So, it is what it is there. But they've got so many weapons, but they're missing Chandler Jones on defense. He's out for the season. He was a major part of their defense last year. But they've got Budda Baker, and they've got, Peterson still plays at a decent level. I like him at number 6. And also remember, they almost beat the Seahawks. It went down to the wire, and the Seahawks are. What do you got them? You got them at 3. They almost beat the Seahawks, and so I think 6 is a great spot, and I think they should probably be ahead of the Packers. I think they're better than the Pack, and I like them, and they're only going to get better.
So speaking of number 5, you do have the Green Bay Packers after coming off of a loss versus the Minnesota Vikings 28-22. They are 5-2 on the season, number 1 in the NFC North. Your Green Bay Packers, Benz. Your Green Bay Packers. Why the upside?
Man, I wish I could have dropped them lower than that. Every time that I've bet on the Packers this year, they have lost. So I don't know if next year maybe I just need to bet $1 on them every game just so they lose every game. But it's unfortunate. I mean, to see what happens when you get inside of the head of a guy like Aaron Rodgers, that's not to say he made a lot of mistakes. He just didn't have the game flow that he's used to. Now, a lot of that is going to have to do with Aaron Jones not being back there. Aaron Jones is a monster, and he is a decoy at most times, but he can explode as well. You kind of saw also Dalvin Cook just had a really freaking amazing game. So when you have a game like that, I mean, Kirk Cousins didn't win that game. The offense didn't win that game. It was literally the offensive line playing like an actual NFL offensive line, and then also having Dalvin explode. So Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers. He is undoubtedly top 3 quarterback in the league, still doing his thing. Devontae Adams is unguardable at this point. He's just an absolute monster. So the Pack are at 5, and I think they'll do just fine the remainder of the season.
So the one thing about the Green Bay Packers is every year they just simply have a game where they forget to show up. Last year was the 49ers. This year was the Minnesota Vikings. They just simply forgot to show up. I am not overreacting from that loss from the Minnesota Vikings whatsoever for the Green Bay Packers. They are still arguably the second best team in the NFC, and you know I think the 5 is perfect right where you had them because they're going to rattle off 5 or 6 wins in a row here. And they're going to flex on you guys and show him why they're a top 5 team.
Not even close. They're not even – they're the ones that's going to exit in the first round. And I'm going to give you something here, Benz, because I like you, dude. I'm going to pick the Vikings to win the NFC North. I'm going to pick them to win the NFC North. And I'll tell you why. I'm telling you – look, they're talking about blowing the Vikings up, but I don't know that they should. Kirk Cousins is not a superstar quarterback, but he is a serviceable quarterback. And I just picked Jeffrey. I just traded Derrick Henry. A lot of people might not understand this, but for a keeper league, I just traded Derrick Henry for CEH and Justin Jefferson because I believe in the young talent, and I like that young talent. And I think Jefferson is going to be – I think he's the number 1 rookie wide receiver. I think he's better than Lamb. And I think CD Lamb, and I think he's going to be a stud. You've got Thielen still. You got Cook running like a monster. You got them playing the way they're playing. And if this defense can step up and play with some heart, they have an offense that is powerful. They have a lot of offensive weapons, and they can do some damage. And I'm going to pick them to beat the Pack for the NFC North. They're already a game up on them. So now the Pack's chasing them already since yesterday. I'm going to pick the Vikings. I think they're going to get hot. I think the Pack is just exactly what they are, what we thought they were, as Dennis Green said. They have no running game because Aaron Jones is always hurt. Their defense stinks. They play like girls on the front with their front 7, and they need another receiver. And you got Aaron Rodgers starting to do his. It's everybody else's fault. He's starting to do that. And when he starts doing that, that whole team goes awry. And I'm picking the Vikings to win the NFC North. And the Packers may not even make the playoffs. And if I would be willing to bet they're a first-round exit. And I think the Pack shouldn't even be in the top 10. They're overrated like they are every year.
Wow. Shots
every year.
Fired.
Every
Shots
year.
Fired.
Man. Well, I
year.
sure hope – hold on. I sure hope that the Vikings do not win the North. I hope they do not win another game this year because they need great draft picks. And right now they're at the 10th pick. That's even too high for them. Don't worry. The Vikings had a good week. They wanted to get that win against the Pack, against their border battle rival. They will not show up the remainder of the season. Look for the Lions to expose us once again this week. Matt Stafford, big week on FanDuel. Go ahead, lock him in. Yep.
I think Jefferson and Thielen have a monster week against Detroit, and it wouldn't surprise me if Kirk Cousins had a 300+ yard game and 3 more touchdowns. Detroit's terrible. They're just bad.
You're speaking out your butt with that one.
I'm telling you, watch.
Moving on to number 4, you have the Baltimore Ravens coming. This seems to be a trend here, Benz. You have all these teams from 7 through 4 taking losses. And the Ravens are the next team to take the loss. They lost to the Steelers 28-24. They're now 5-2 on the season as well. Ravens, a little high.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like I actually thought that they played very well against the Steelers. Obviously, Lamar didn't because Lamar is subpar, and that is what it is. But, you know, the thing about it, to see J.K. Dobbins do what he did against a great defense, to see their running game do that, but also, I mean, they are good. Their defense is great, but just to see them hang with the Steelers, not give up. You know, Lamar gave that game away. Honestly, he did. He gave that game away. Look at the stat line. That's what he does. He gives up turnovers, and the ball is the program. The more turnovers you get, usually the other team with the picks, they're going to take over. Yeah, I still like the Ravens. I hope they get back to their old ways of being a run-dominant team, because when they have to throw the ball, it's not good.
So I hope you're right. I hope the Ravens do get hot and they go 14-2 and they are the number 1 seed in the AFC, because when Kansas City Chiefs go into Baltimore again and whoop that ass, I can tell you guys again that Lamar Jackson is trash. Every big game, what does Lamar Jackson do? He shits the bed, Tip. Name me one game Lamar Jackson has won in January.
I'm not disagreeing with you. Man, the man is only in his 2nd full year. Give him a break. I don't
care. Patrick Mahomes only had his 3rd full season.
Well, we talked about this the other day, though. They're 2 different quarterbacks. If you got them both together, I mean, who are you taking? It's not even a close race that you're taking Mahomes. He's the more complete quarterback. Lamar Jackson is star. He's a stud. But let me preface that by this. I'm not sure that he can get a Super Bowl playing the way he's playing. First of all, you had Brown go on Twitter last night or whenever he did, and he's complaining that he's not being utilized, you know, but he's number 1 in the NFL in air yards, but he's not being utilized a lot. Will Des Bryant help them? I don't know that he's going to help them too much. I don't think so. I think Lamar is going to, number 1, they have to get him a top receiver. And number 2, they have to teach him how to throw the ball, because he should only be running when he has to run. And he is not accurate with his passing at all.
So what you're saying is you need to teach a running back how to throw the ball. Got it.
I think Tim Tebow was a better pocket presence than Lamar Jackson. That's just my opinion. Now, Lamar Jackson, he could probably stand from one end zone to the other and fling the ball from his knees and throw it 100 yards. But he's not accurate with his throw. He can't hit simple 5-7 yard slants. You know, he can't drop the ball, you know, where it needs to be on fade routes. So he's just not good. So he's got a lot of work to do in his passing game. They need to get him a top receiver that Brown can complement instead of Brown, because Brown's not a top receiver. And I think if they get Dobbins going and they keep feeding him, I think he can be a serviceable back and be a decent back for them and keep the defense honest. But I agree with you. I disagree. I don't think Lamar Jackson is trash. I don't think he's garbage, but I do think that he needs a lot of work, and I believe that he can be that quarterback if he'll put his mind to it and put the work in with his arm.
You know what the crazy thing about it is that Lamar Jackson's basically Taysom Hill. If you really get down to brass tack, he is a wildcat quarterback.
You could say that.
That is exactly what Lamar is, and he is tough to scheme for. But when you get down to it and you see other teams exposing him for the quarterback that he is, it's tough to win with a guy like that. They should just trade him. We'll give him Kirk Cousins. They got a better option with Kirk Cousins right there and there, and that's good for them.
But you know, you look at the end of the game, and that's one of the things that I see what you all are talking about, and I agree with. At the end of the game, Pittsburgh, the whole world knew that Lamar was going to run that ball at the end of the game. Pittsburgh. We knew he was not going to pass. The receivers knew when they left the line at the snap. They knew we're not getting this ball. We're, and it's like that's the stuff that Lamar has to say. Okay, you know what? I can't do this on my own. I got to have help. I'm going to trust my receivers and my backs, my team, and I'm going to help them win. I'm going to use them to help me win, and this is going to be a team thing, a we, not an I thing. And until he gets that, which he has the ability to do, he will continue being that quarterback, and the Ravens will not make a Super Bowl run. But I've got him at 5 because I had the Bucs in the middle of the Seahawks. I had the Bucs at number 3. So I moved the Ravens down, and you might actually even take the Titans overall to be better than the Ravens. To be better than the Ravens. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
I'm going to cut you off.
So who do the Ravens have compared to the Titans? Who do they have?
You're right. The Ravens are not a
that defense. That's what they have.
But they can't stop the running game. Ryan Tannehill and the receivers for Tennessee are much better, way better than the ones for the Baltimore Ravens.
The Baltimore Ravens are a 14-2 team.
I'm just saying,
and then lose the first round of the playoffs.
I'm just saying, head to head, I would pick the Titans. They're a more complete team.
Okay, so moving on to number 3, you do have the Seattle Seahawks coming out the big win over the 49ers, 37-27. However, the 49ers are decimated with injuries, with the Kittle and Jimmy G both being out now, probably for the rest of the season. Seahawks number 3, a little low, I think, maybe in my opinion, but interesting. Why you have
so I have them at number 3 simply because of 2 things: Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is a man among boys, gentlemen. Like, I have never in my life seen a wide receiver like DK Metcalf.
Good Lord.
You know, to have the frame, to have the speed, to have every tool and then some. Like, usually if you're building a wide receiver and you're making, you're the god of football, right? And you're building a wide receiver, you would not make a DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is a freaking tight end that runs like Calvin Ridley. It's freaking scary, man. So like that in of itself is, you know what I mean?
Jeez.
I'd build Randy Moss. That's what I'd build. I mean, let's be real. But so I have them at number 3. Another reason why they're not higher than 3 for me is that defense. That defense is highly suspect, one of the worst in the league. They did go out shopping, right? They did make some acquisitions. I hope that they make some more. That's the shitty thing about the trade deadline in the NFL. Teams don't shop as much as the hype is. You hear all these rumors and shit don't happen. So I was hoping that there would be some more movement. Hopefully they can make some additions on that side of the ball, especially like Buck has said prior. That front 7 on defense needs to bulk up. They need to figure that out quick. They need to start bringing some pressure, and that's why they are at number 3. They are at number 3 simply because they are one of the best offenses in football right now.
Agreed.
Otherwise, the other side of the ball is burning dumpster fire.
Go ahead, Tip.
I would have put them at number 4 because, like I said, I got the Bucs at 3 because I like the Steelers. I like the Chiefs. I think the Steelers are number 1 because they're undefeated, so that goes without saying. And then I would have had the Seahawks at 4. But the Seahawks, first of all, DK Metcalf is the Derrick Henry of wide receivers. He's ridiculous. Absolutely
Derrick Henry's overrated.
Okay, that's okay. Again, you've been sipping back on Grandpa's cough syrup. You're going to have to stop doing that before the shows, bro. I'm telling you, man. I can't do this. I can't work with this, man. I can't do it. Okay, so that being said, now I have heard rumors that the Seahawks are interested in Watt, J.J. Watt, which would be amazing. Now they did just go get
trash.
Trash. Who's the guy that they just signed a guy for their defense?
Carlos Dunlap from the
they signed Dunlap, right? Now you put J.J. Watt in there. He may not be like what he used to be, but he's still a disruptor. He is still a good defensive player and can help them out on that line a lot. You got what was their safety's name? Is it Adams that's been out for 3 weeks now or something? He's hurt. He's a Pro Bowl safety. So they've got what they need there to have a decent enough defense that can get them through games. So I like them where they're at. Russell Wilson, to use one of your former guys' quotes, is straight cash, homie. straight cash homie. He is just he's butter and beans when he gets out there, man. He's ridiculous. He is carrying that team. They need to something. I don't know what's going on with the running game. Carson, he does decent when he's in there, but he's not. He's not like a I feel like he should be like a Derrick Henry or something. Like just big. He's big and he should just be a beast. And he's not like that. So, but I think they have the means to make it to the NFC Championship game. I think if they played a team like Tampa Bay, who will be more experienced come that time, and they'll hopefully have all their pieces together, I don't think they could beat a complete team like that with the defense that Tampa Bay has, their secondary. But yeah, man, they have a chance. And when you got Russell Wilson, to me, he's the MVP of the season. He's the number one quarterback beyond Mahomes and everybody.
Yeah, and just to add to your point, Ben's there, as the trade deadline quickly does approach here in the next few hours or so, the Seahawks are interested in Stephon Gilmore from the Patriots. So
beautiful.
Does that add power to the front seven? No, but it helps down to lock down
helps that secondary, right?
From the Packers and whatnot. So
you don't have a team like Dallas throwing for 300 plus yards on you. That would help.
So moving on to number 2, you do have the Kansas City Chiefs coming off a big win, covering the 21 point spread there over the Jets, 35-9. They do host the Carolina Panthers next week. Number 2, Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of elaborate, kind of combining 1 and 2. At number 1, I have the Steelers. At number 2, I have the Chiefs. I need to see more out of the Steelers. Otherwise, the Chiefs are going to overtake. I don't care if the Steelers win again and they stay undefeated. The Chiefs are showing more. And originally, when I went over my power rankings this week, I had the Chiefs at number 1 and the Steelers at number 2, only because I feel like the Steelers aren't playing up to their potential, which is scary enough, right? The Steelers have potential to wall up teams. And is that because of Big Ben? Is that because of the inconsistencies on the offensive side of the ball? Is that because Deontay Johnson can't stay healthy throughout a whole game? And it's freaking sad, but true. It's interesting to see. I am very interested to see what happens this week. Who do they play this week?
The Steelers, let me pull it up.
Sure.
Wasn't prepared for that. My bad. Steelers.
That's all right.
There you are.
Boom.
Steelers play the Cowboys. They're at the Cowboys this week.
Yeah, so that's exactly a game in of itself where if they don't clear at least a 2-touchdown win, they're going to fall. They're going to be a number 2 team. And that's just because you saw it finally that it would have been very easy for the Chiefs to fall back and just, okay, we got this game in the bag, even though the start wasn't as fast as most people wanted to see.
Right.
They could have, but they still throttled the Jets as they should have. It will be a good thing to see. But yeah, Mahomes is playing like Mahomes. That stat line in of itself was great. I love that he's mixing it up and throwing to multiple targets rather than just pounding the shit out of Travis Kelce, which he still does on a game-to-game basis. Tyreek Hill came back and showed some more flash, which is good to see him involved. But getting guys like Hardman and Robinson involved more, that's going to open up a lot more options on that side of the ball. Interesting enough, they really backed off the running game, which was weird because you're throttling a team like the Jets towards the second half of that game, and they didn't revert back to the run. Le'Veon fumbles, does things that Le'Veon does, unfortunately. But other than that, the Chiefs are still a solid 1A, 1B team. So that's what I got for the top 10, boys.
All righty, Benz. As always, thanks for joining us, man. We'll talk to you next Tuesday night. And on the after hours tonight, I'll give you guys the correct top 10.
Good seeing you, buddy.
Later, guys. Peace out.
Later.
All righty, Tip. And on that note, we're going to take a quick little break, Tip. And on the other side of the break, we are going to discuss more of the top 10 guys and also talk a little bit about the Buccaneers win last night. Air quotes wins. Mike and Mike, man, our guys live on Sports Talk. We'll be right back right after this.
All right.
And welcome back to the Man Hour, guys. Michael Buckeyser here with Coach Tip himself. Head over to MikeandMikeManHour.com. Pick your guys' self some merchandise. That'll be highly, highly appreciated. But if you don't want to pick anything up, head over to YouTube.com/Mike and Mike Man Hour. Hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon as well. We are live on the YouTube channel every Monday through Friday, and the After Hours is live on YouTube as well at 9 p.m. East Coast time is when the After Hours is on. So let me welcome Coach Tip back onto the show. Tip.
Hey.
Ben's kind of had to cut out a little early there on us, but let's talk like a little bit about the Chiefs and Steelers being 1A, 1B type of situations. Do you have the Steelers at number 1?
I think that's kind of what Ben said. It's 1A, 1B. I would put the Steelers at number 1 just because of 2 reasons. One, they're undefeated, so
right.
They're their only undefeated team in the league. So they've earned that. And 2, they've beaten some good teams. It's not like they've played all cupcakes and just whomped on the Jets. So I'm okay with them being at 1 for now. But if you want to talk complete teams, I would say that Kansas City is probably the number 1 team in the league. And another thing is, if Patrick Mahomes can stay healthy, and if he figures out how to get Hardman, if he figures out how to get those other receivers involved, along with Hill, and now that Bell has shown his true colors, go back to the running game of CEH, which I'm glad because I've got him on both of my keeper league squads, then I think that they will probably overtake the number 1 spot. And on a neutral field, I don't believe Pittsburgh can beat Kansas City. And I also think part of Pittsburgh's issue is they have a lot of weapons, and Big Ben can't hit them. Big Ben is not mobile. If you put a Patrick Mahomes on that team, he would hit every one of those receivers. He'd hit Johnson. He would hit, Schuster. He would hit all of those receivers. But you've got Big Ben who's not mobile. He has to stay in one spot for the most part, and he can't really move around and hit these guys because they're young receivers and they're constantly on the move, and they're much faster than older receivers would be. So I think Big Ben is having a problem hitting his receivers because they're young, they're fast. He's not mobile. He can't really do anything to get out of the way and kind of change the angle of throws and allow his receivers to kind of work for him to get in open spots. Whereas a Patrick Mahomes can do that. He can by himself. And even Tom Brady is starting to leave the pocket some and make create time for himself. And Big Ben just can't do that anymore. And I think that's part of their problem. I think if you had a quarterback like a Patrick Mahomes or a young guy, I think Pittsburgh would be a much more explosive team offensively. But their defense is just nasty.
I don't think they have a problem with Big Ben being in the pocket like at all. I mean, that's what an offensive line wants is to know where your quarterback is, and if he's behind you, you can block the guy effectively. I mean, the Steelers are averaging 30-plus points per game, 30-plus points a game when their defense is only given up less than 20. I mean, by far the Pittsburgh Steelers are the number 1 team, and I am a Chiefs fan. You see my Chiefs here, right? I am a Chiefs fan, and I am telling you that the Kansas City Chiefs are the number 1 or are the number 2 team in the NFL because the Pittsburgh Steelers are a complete team. They have the best defense.
They're a complete team.
In a long time.
Yeah.
They have the best offense I've seen in a long time. Big Ben looks like he is 25 years old again, with a mindset of a 30-year or a crafty veteran. I mean, Big Ben's game is not scramble around. Big Ben's game is to sit in the pocket, let the play happen. He is not forcing the play. He's letting the play come to him, and he gets in the ball. I mean, their offense is very, very good. Now, to your point about the Kansas City Chiefs, they are much like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Right.
They have too many weapons on the offense, and you cannot get everybody the ball. That is why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will ultimately fail, because AB will start demanding the ball, and Evans and God will be like, hey, man, either jump on this train or you need to leave. And I think AB is not going to finish the season at Tampa Bay. Take that hot take right there. He's not going to finish the season at Tampa Bay. He'll be cut by 5 weeks in, so about three or 4 weeks left in this season when that court case is, and he's going to be found guilty and get kicked off the team. And then the true colors of the Buccaneers will show. Like, they're not a very good team. The Kansas City Chiefs are a much better team than Tampa Bay Buccaneers because of their weapons that they have, and everybody is buying into the system. Like, hey, I am not going to get the ball 15 times a game, but when I get it the 3 or 4 times, I need to make stuff happen. That's why the Kansas City Chiefs are better. Well,
I mean, they have just a nucleus of offensive weapons that, and Mahomes can scramble around a little bit to get to those weapons. Whereas Big Ben, he may not be a scrambler, but he still has to be, Tom Brady's a pocket quarterback. But you see Tom Brady leaving the pocket now sometimes in order to make room, to make a way for him to get the ball to his receivers and to give himself time. And Big Ben's not even doing that. And you're throwing to these young receivers. Now they're doing great, but the 30-plus points a game that they score, they've been at those points, like when he just smashed the Jets. They didn't score 30 against the Ravens. Now they scored 28, but they didn't score 30. So that shows that the Ravens are a better team. I just think that Pittsburgh, like Ben said, I don't think they've clicked and quite put it together. If they do, then they could be the number one team. Their running game is really solid. Connor's really running the ball well. I think they have to get more of a consistency in the passing game, and then I believe they could probably be the number one team.
Yeah, and I don't see anything wrong with the Steelers doing whatsoever, guys. But that is going to be it for the Man Hour today, guys. For Coach Tip and myself, we're going to wrap it up right here. The hour is up. Tip, NFL Power Rankings are out. Week 9 is coming. I'm just glad that football is still around. But as always, Tip, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Hey, man, be blessed, guys. Appreciate you.